Hi everyone, my name is Verdeluz and I'm an evolutionary and shamanic astrologer. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I'm going to talk about this very powerful and fascinating, sometimes challenging subject of the art of partnership. It's a very delicate art, and wanted to talk to you a little bit today about going beyond sun signs, about compatibility and connection, and a little bit my own journey with this language of astrology as a tool to help guide us in this sometimes challenging waters of the art of partnership. You know, in love, I've often felt pretty frustrated, and I'm pretty sure I'm like you. I think we've all had these challenges, and um, it's at times I felt a really deep sorrow. I've wondered if I could really find a compatible energy to share space and time with. Um, and this sorrow inside was colored with a really deep longing for a connection not based on fear, but on the willingness of the open heart. And I kept seeing these repeating patterns in my life, often attracting partners that weren't available, living half a world away. And I really started to question, my ability to be in relationship. Didn't really know how to navigate this. Felt like a lot of the times I disappointed someone else, or I would be disillusioned with the person that I was connecting with, or with the situation itself. And so I really had these challenges, and I didn't really know what to do. And then this I kind of think of it as a miraculous event happened, and I took this intensive workshop in archetypal astrology, and I'll never forget hearing this concept of the masks of the god and goddess, and that this was related to the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, which were represented by the position of Mars and the position of Venus in the sky when you were born. And so this actually, this whole partnership dynamics didn't have much to do with the sun signs. And this really got to me, it really started to make sense. I always felt that the compatibility through sun signs was probably, definitely partially helpful, but it seemed really limiting, and and then I really started to discover, that this nature of attraction and magnetism and the opening of the heart with Venus, and then this nature of passion and sexual energy and desire and the art of pursuing with Mars, I discovered that, wow, these really made sense to me, and when I saw their position in my own chart, I really started to have some epiphanies. And it's like all of these like gritty complexities and the subtle nuances of relationships started to become a lot more clear. So, now I've been an evolutionary and shamanic astrologer for about 7 years, a really blessed path that I'm grateful to be on. And I've taught a number of workshops now on the art of partnership with Mars and Venus. And I wanted to just share a little bit of that with you today. You know, I wasn't sure this year, if I could do it. I really wanted to, I had wanted to write this book on this subject that I love so much, The Art of Partnership. But I've been finishing my second book, The Shamanic Artist and the Rise of the Wounded Healer. And so I'm editing that. And then I also, been realizing that sadly most of us aren't reading much anymore. So I thought for something so dynamic as the art of partnership, that it would be best to teach through video and through webinar. And that's why I wanted to create this sequence of videos to give you some examples of the profound insights that this ancient language of the stars can provide for navigating relationships. It's really interesting that the two of the most visited websites online are pornography and astrology. And so it's like this weaving of sex and love and the stars. You know, it's been in our blood and our bones forever. And there's a really deep part of us that remembers how our ancestors, you know, watched the patterns of the stars and the planets, and how they would affect things on the earth. And this was a concept called as above, so below, to a lot of the ancients and the mystics and the sages and the seers, the alchemists, all of them. And really in no area of life more than relationships have I and other astrologers found this language of astrology to be so useful. You know, it just opens up so many perceptual tools to you, and a passive compassion. It's really a language, you know, language to understand each other on the deepest possible level, really to have more fun with each other, and to really show up in our highest capacities. The problem with today's sort of pop astrology is that it's really watered down a lot of the real depths of what this language of astrology is. You know, it's become very confusing with the sun sign columns and the often, you know, not so fulfilling sun sign compatibility stuff. You know, it's a good way to sell books, but it's not really helpful ultimately in really having like a sacred union, you know, with a partner, or maybe someone that we're married to, you know, that we've already developed this commitment to, or we just want to know who should I be with? How can I be in a sacred relationship with someone? And you know, what we rarely ever hear about in that sort of pop astrology world is the power of studying the moon and Venus and Mars. Because the moon, you know, I mean, is there anything more important to most of us than feeling like emotionally secure, you know, feeling content, stable, like we can just relax, you know, with our partners? I mean, for me, that's definitely the most important thing. And that really relates to our moon sign, you know. The moon is the security needs in our chart, and our comfort needs. And then there's Venus, you know, goddess of love and everything related to relationships, you know. And Venus is not the sun, is the planet which shows most our relationship needs. You know, how we love, how we magnetize, how we attract. And what must be really appreciated about Venus is that she's often in the sign next to the sun. And this is interesting and can be very challenging because signs next to each other run very different energy. And so this is one of the reasons why our relationships can be so damn complex, because there's like this internal friction within each one of us, where our sun, our life force, our vitality can be running a different energy than how we open our hearts and how we attract someone into our lives. And so recognizing this and trying to heal this inner strife is really why it's like an invitation to us to go deeper into studying our souls and who we are, and our souls and needs for connection and self-discovery through our partnerships. So I wanted to take you for a few minutes through a few examples of the difference in love styles. And I wanted to do this with giving the examples of a woman who has, say, Venus in Scorpio versus having Venus in Aquarius. And also what that would be like if you had your sun in the sign next to your Venus. So I wanted to start first here. This is just a mandala that I made, a planetary portrait of Venus, and there's Aphrodite, you know, they're the same goddess, and her symbol there, and some of the keywords, and her mantra as well in the Sanskrit tradition, Om Rim Shukraya Nama. And here I'm going to move over, and here's a couple of her other keywords, you know, aesthetics, the creative urges in us. But really we're talking here about the sacred feminine today and the version of the goddess. So I wanted to go over here. Here's Scorpio. And we wanted to talk about who this version of the goddess is. Every sign of the zodiac, every Venus position will have a different version of the goddess. She'll wear a different costume, a different mask. And so, um, Venus in Scorpio, this is the goddess of intensity, of the depths. And sometimes she could be secretive, you know, and she really wants to go very, very deep with a partner. And sometimes that desire to go so deep can put her into some situations that may be a little bit dangerous, maybe a little bit unhealthy, you know. Um, but it's really important. This goddess doesn't want to pour out the contents of her soul to just anyone, but when she does, then this passion and sometimes this lust and this raw energy can be very hypnotic, very mesmerizing to other people. So she becomes very strong, very powerful. And in order to go this deep, the logic of the goddess with Venus and Scorpio is, I can't do this with everyone. I don't want to do this with everyone. So she tends to be more monogamous, but because of that need for this raw energy and power, sometimes she'll attract these situations where there could be some secret affairs happening, or this obsessiveness, or this jealousy, because she's sort of exuding this sexual energy. It's very strong. And so there's like these very powerful kind of volcanoes that need to go off in this goddess. And she can be very extreme. She could be power hungry and controlling on the shadow side, or she could be, very tantric and shamanic, and she could just be just this raw, powerful energy. She works deeply with the dark goddesses, or the goddesses of the underworld, of prophecy and depth and intensity. And one of them is Kali, the destroyer of illusions in the Hindu tradition, or Inanna, goddess of the underworld, and Lilith, goddess of raw sexuality. So, here's an interesting point. Here's this goddess, Venus in Scorpio, and imagine you were a man, and you were attracted to this woman, you're starting a connection with this woman. Wouldn't you want to know that this is her version of the goddess? Imagine if you wanted to have just, kind of a little fling and something sort of just surface level with this goddess. It's not going to work. There's going to be some really challenging situations. Like we said, we may have some of those volcanoes going off. Very different energies. So it becomes really important for both parties. In this case, the woman with the Venus and Scorpio, and this possible partner of the man, to have this language, to know that this is this goddess that wants to be honored, and that this person going into relationship needs to know if they're willing to step up and be on that journey with that goddess. Now, there's a very different journey with this goddess Venus in Aquarius. So let's go check her out for a minute. There's Aquarius. And whereas this Venus in Scorpio wants that deep emotional bond, that is the opposite of what this Venus in Aquarius goddess wants. Sometimes the less the emotional bond, the better. Because Venus in Aquarius is like this bird who needs to fly free. She doesn't want to be caged in. And she really values intelligence and independence in herself and her lovers. She's definitely, unconventional. Sometimes she could be a little shocking, and she wants to shake things up. She has this kind of rebellious, revolutionary nature. She's the ultimate people person. She has a lot of friends, and if you're going to be hanging out with this goddess, you probably need to vibe with her friends, and so she likes to be sort of maybe at festivals, or at, big group events where she's connecting with people, and especially people who are kind of shifting the paradigm, who are futuristic, and that's the kind, or the model of relationship she wants to be in. She doesn't want to do it like everyone else or every other relationship has done it before, because that wouldn't be liberating to her, you know? And so you can think of someone like an Oprah Winfrey, you know, who has millions of friends and fans, you know, and this kind of extended community. And her show is all about other people. You know, she kind of gets out of the way. And that's sort of this goddess of Venus in Aquarius, you know. She has this kind of uniqueness and originality, and sometimes she's eccentric and a little bit weird. But she really needs to be mentally stimulated, not emotionally stimulated or driven, you know. And she wants a kind of relationship that can kind of shock her into a new level of awareness. And so you have some of these examples. You know, she's the genius, of course, her archetype. But you have examples of a Janis Joplin or a Yoko Ono. You know, these are pretty eccentric and unique, and, you know, goddesses. And then in the sign of, you know, for men, you have like someone like a Mozart, an Elton John, a Quentin Tarantino. More, you know, these are unique individuals that have a very original voice in their creativity, right? So if we went back over for 1 minute over to Scorpio, you have like a Hillary Clinton, right? Seeking that power. You know, she has that real depth to her and that intensity. Sigourney Weaver is another example of a female with that. And look at the roles that she plays. You know, a lot of the, like Alien, you know, very deep, very intense, going into the darkness, the unknown, the mystery. And she's got this raw power in that film, you know. So she was really playing a role that just felt super comfortable for her, you know. So we have this very distinct difference between Scorpio and Aquarius, signs that square each other. But then I wanted to talk about, you know, this idea that Venus is sometimes next to a sign that the sun is in. So very likely this woman with Venus in Aquarius, for instance, could have her sun in Capricorn. Now this gets a little bit challenging, right? Because with the Venus in Capricorn, the sun in Capricorn, her solar life force in Capricorn, this goddess or this woman is very motivated. She's very hardworking. She's very ambitious. She's dedicated to her work. You know, she wants to be successful and full of integrity. She's disciplined. She's responsible. You know, this is Capricorn. Right? But then this goddess inside of her couldn't be more different, you know? Because this goddess really, like, her love nature wants to be totally free of those binding structures or any kind of order. You know, she wants something exciting and spontaneous, like we were saying, coming back over here, you know, something experimental in relationships. Capricorn is not experimental. It wants to do what the status quo has done. And so, you know, this woman with Venus in Aquarius, again, she wants to be honored for her superior intelligence and her wit. And she definitely needs this kind of a freedom to explore something very different. But inside of her, her solar life force is like, maybe like a little bit like, you know, even cynical or skeptical of the people that she may attract into her life. You know, that Capricorn part of her could ask these questions like, you know, is this person that I'm attracting is maybe a little too crazy, or we have to be more serious, or we have a job to do, you know, and this situation is too weird. So inside of this woman is this internal dialogue and this kind of friction going back and forth. And so it becomes really important for us to know what part of our souls is speaking when. And in relationship, when we start to attract different people, who's going to support what aspects of who we are? You know, many of us want to find the partner of our dreams, but we have to get really practical and real with ourselves first in order to attract that partner. You know, what do I need to be in my relationship integrity? and what voices must be honored and respected by a lover, for me to show up. And if you have a, a, a possible partner with Venus in Aquarius versus Venus in Scorpio, like we've given this example today, how can you show up for that person? A lot of information here today. I hope it's been helpful. I really wanted to just give you some insights into some examples of the version of the goddess with Venus, and a little bit about Mars, version of the god. We're going to talk more about Mars in the next video. And we talked a little bit about the moon too, your emotional center, how you react and what nourishes you. And I really do hope you'll join me for the next video, where we are going to talk about Mars, the sacred masculine, and also talk about why we tend to attract the same energies over and over again. And I'm even going to mention a little bit about marriage and commitment, and why it seems like so many people around are getting married, and what's going on with that energy. So I really thank you for joining me today. And you can check out my website, soulalchemyastrology.com. And I welcome you into this language of astrology, the language of the stars. Take care of yourself, and happy 2012.